Alright, I wanted to create a video for everybody. It's been quite some time since I have been on YouTube. I am driving, so I am paying attention to the road. I want to talk about a little bit about what I've been up to lately. So while I drive, we can have a little bit of a chat. So, this video is going to be primarily about someone who lives, for someone who lives in a big city that might be deciding they want to move, and sharing my experiences and what I have gone through in the past 6 months, because the past 6 months has been quite extensive. Lots of changes have happened. Got a new haircut. And I have moved. As you can see, I'm wearing a short sleeve here, and I'm wearing my Universal Mel's Die-In t-shirt from Halloween Horror Nights. That'll kind of give you a little bit of a clue of where I'm at. And I have a few other videos that probably tell you where I'm at anyways, but I wanted to talk about how I had moved from Chicago to Orlando, Florida. And not just I live in Chicago, but I live in the burbs, but I say that I live in Chicago. No, I came from Hyde Park. And I moved from Hyde Park to Chicago. And it started in the end of June, beginning of July. I kind of got in here, I think the 1st of July or the last day of June, somewhere right around there. So I was kind of exploring, the first week of July. So what got me to this? What had got me to that? What thought process what were I thinking about to get me there? For one, I am 37 years old. I was 36 at the time. In the beginning of the year, I had gotten laid off from my job. I had a corporate job, and I worked through a tech company that is based in the Loop inside Chicago. I was working from home, and they had laid me off. So that was kind of the first thing, the first indicator that told me that I should be leaving. I kind of thought, I've had this thought process in my head for quite some time, because I was working from home anyway, so I was thinking of a change, pretty much. I've done everything in Chicago. I've lived everywhere in Chicago. I grew up in Chicago. Not Chicago, but Chicagoland. I was born in the burbs of Chicago. I've lived in Chicago for 11 years of my life. I've lived in different portions of Chicago, from the north side of Chicago to the west side of Chicago to the south side of Chicago. I grew up in Park Forest, which is the south suburbs of Chicago. I've lived in Bensonville, which is the west suburb of Chicago. I lived in Algonquin, which is the northwest of Chicago. I've lived in El Gurnee, which is the north part of Chicago. I've lived in Evanston, which is a suburb right outside of Chicago in the north part. So I've lived in all these different places. I've been there. I've done that, and it was ready for me to change. I was ready for a change. And I let it happen. I was going through also a breakup. Somebody that I was with, we ended up separating. I was with her for quite some time, and we were living together, and I ended up leaving. I don't know if you can even hear me. There's silence about that. And another few reasons what got me there is that the crime in Chicago, it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. I'll give you some short little stories that I've had. I have been armed robbed in Chicago. like legitimately a gun to my back while I was working at T-Mobile and told me to get onto the ground and put as many phones as they possibly could into a bag on my back while I was sitting there with a gun pointed to me. So I've been armed robbed. That's the first thing. Second thing is, a month before I left from Chicago, my car got stolen. My car, the car that I'm in right at this very moment, was stolen while I was doing some delivery for Amazon Flex. Now, the car was locked, so I'll preface that the car was locked, and they got in with a key fob. I had them on camera, and the worst part about it is my dog was sitting in the passenger seat locked up because she was with me for a specific reason, and they took the dog and they like threw my dog out, and I ended up getting my dog back, and my car is perfectly fine. So that's great, right? They actually took my car and they armed robbed 2 people from Loyola, and so very scary stuff. So those are the crime has gotten really bad. I don't want to seem like I'm being political or whatever. Like, I also saw like the migrants coming into Chicago because I lived in Hyde Park, so I saw all these influx of migrants coming in, and a lot of them are homeless, asking for money, and some of them are causing trouble, some of them are causing problems within Chicago, and a lot of them are living in tents in the middle of a dead winter. So there were so many things, and also the cost of living in Chicago is just outrageous. Yes, you can find apartments for pretty cheap, but you're going to be living in neighborhoods, I'm going to tell you, you're going to be living in neighborhoods that are not safe. They're not safe for you. One place that I lived in was in Little Village. I lived there for about 5 years of the time that I lived in Chicago, and I was only paying $1,000 per month, and it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom place, but it was a Latin King gang road. Like, I had so many drive-bys on my road, cops constantly patrolling the area, and it was just a bad environment. I hated being there. The area was very trashy. Nobody cared about picking up their trash. It was, I lived by the Walmart over there in Little Village, and there's just trash everywhere. There's homeless people sleeping in the side of little curve areas, little entryways where your doors are there, and I can tell you stories for days pretty much from Chicago. There's a lot of things. My family lives in Chicago. I'm trying to get them to move. It doesn't have to be Florida, but somewhere else outside of Chicago. The taxes are just outrageous in Chicago. It's over 10%. Out here in Florida, it's 6%. They don't charge you state income taxes. Like if you get a car and you're trying to, get a sticker, it's going to cost you like $30 or $40 and you'll get 2 years for a sticker. There's like these little things about Florida that just were like very beneficial for me. And it made the most logical sense pretty much. I do love Disney and I do love the theme parks. I was here about 2 years ago with my ex-girlfriend, and I kind of fell in love with Disney again. Like, I've only been to Disney like a couple of times, but I really loved the weather. That's another reason why Chicago is just not beneficial. There's more time that you're spending inside your house, and for me, it's depressing. For somebody that's been living there pretty much his whole entire life, I'm not somebody I don't like being cooped up inside. If I was like an older person that settled down and I had kids and stuff like that and I had to raise them, inside anyways, all right, that would make, maybe more sense. I'm not trying to say Chicago and the Chicagoland area, or just, don't ever live there. I mean, Chicago is a great city, all right? I mean, before all the crime and crap that has happened to Chicago, it's definitely a great city. But it's just I wanted to change. I wanted to get out and explore and move somewhere and change the dynamic of my life. And to be honest with you, since I've been here and since I've been able to be here for 6 months, I can give you a better opinion. Like, I couldn't make this video like the first month of me being here because I feel like I wouldn't have given you a good like opinion of how it is being here too. I could tell you all day long about Chicago, but I wouldn't be able to tell you like how was the process of me moving here, and how have I adapted to Orlando. Since I've been here in Orlando, I've already been through a hurricane. Like, legitimately, above my like house, Milton like went right through us. The one before that, I think it was Helen. That one pretty much like we were in the outskirts of that, but I went through that. There was one before that, which wasn't really that bad, but like I've already had my hurricane experiences here, so I can tell you how that is for a fact. It is nowhere near as bad as probably how it is on the coasts. Anywhere on the coast, it's going to be a bit worse, but here in Orlando, it was windy for like an hour or two, on and off, throughout that day. It would be on and off wind, and as long as you protect your stuff and protect your area and just have ways to protect yourself with the wind, then yeah, you should be okay. It's just, it gets windy over here, and it was nowhere near that bad. Helen had put our power outage. We had a power outage for about 3 hours where I live at, and then Milton, it flickered for like a second, and then it didn't even do anything. So we didn't even have a problem with that. So I can tell you, Orlando is great if you want to stay away from hurricanes. The weather. Let me tell you something about the weather. Now, when I moved in here, people kept saying to me, "Oh, it's gonna be super hot. It's like super hot, and I hate it, and I hate it." You know, there are people that live out here, and they're like, "Oh, it's like," because I moved in here dead into the summertime, like pretty much like in the middle of the summertime. So I got the extent of the summer, and right now we're in December, so I can tell you a little bit about how that feels too. So with Orlando, with the weather, it is hot. It primarily is in the 90s, low 90s, high 90s. It does get into the low like hundreds, though it just doesn't feel that bad. It really doesn't. If you're talking to somebody who does actually like the hot weather, if you're somebody that is maybe larger, you're a larger person, and heat is it makes you feel really uncomfortable. I just don't recommend living in a tropical environment. But if you are also, even like there are people that are skinnier too that don't like the heat. Like my mother, for example, she's skinnier and she hates the heat too. If you just don't like the feeling of heat, then you're just not gonna like it, right? So I'm gonna tell you that, like, you just don't like heat and you don't like the way it feels, like when it's summertime and wherever you're at, yeah, 100%. Just do not move anywhere near Florida at all. But if you're somebody that like, all right, I don't really mind heat like at all, like, it gets hot. Like, legitimately in Chicago in the summer times, it gets just as hot in the summer times as it gets hot here. It's like in the 90s, and it gets in the 90s in Chicago. So, because when I left, it was pretty hot.
There's a 6-minute slowdown on I-4 West
so
in 5 miles.
My climatization,
you are still on the best route.
was very ramped up from even the beginning because it was already hot. So, yes, it does get hot. It does stay hotter longer. So it'll start once you start getting into hurricane season, which is like September, October, and November. When it starts raining more often, because it will rain more often in September and in October and and not even November. It starts like, honestly, like it's pretty much like September and October that I've had, where it has been raining like consistently out here, and you'd have thunderstorms more often out in this area. But it does rain more often during that time. You'll get thunderstorms. Now, how the rain operates here is that it's a tropical environment. So storms will come in and then they will leave, right? And you'll have a street that will be rainy. Like you'll see it legitimately, the rain pouring over there. And where you're at, it is dry and you won't even get hit with any rain. So there's just a lot of times where it rains and it might rain for like 15, 20 minutes and then it's gone. Also, the rain here, it feels a lot better than any rain that I've ever experienced. Because like in Chicago, it's cold. It's cold rain is pouring on you and you feel every drop that you feel. Here, because it's hot, you don't have that, this guy's trying to speed up. You don't feel it like that. It actually feels kind of good. It feels like a little, like a warm shower, you know, like a little tad warm shower, nuke warm shower. You get rained on a little bit and then it goes away, and it's really not that big of a deal at all for me. I prefer that over snow any day of the week. Snow is beautiful looking, it's pretty, but it stays and it's there and you deal with it for like a whole like week or whatever, and it's annoying. Alright? I've used to shovel the snow in Chicago. I know how it is. Alright, like it's not great. I just don't like the snow. So the weather now to come into the fall weather, it starts to cool down, the rain starts to suppress the heat, and you start feeling more of the cooler weather. So now, like in November and December, the temperatures will range. You'll have some like days that will go into the 60s. There's been a very couple of times that has gone into the 50s. Now in the morning time, you'll see a lot of like advertisements of like, oh, Florida's going into the 30s or 40s. It does happen, but that's always at nighttime or in the morning time. Once it hits back into the noon time, it ramps the temperature back up to like the 50s and 60s during that like cold spout. It pretty much stays like 50s or 60s for a little bit, for a very short period of time, so it's a cooler weather. But primarily, like right now, it's 77 degrees and we're getting to be about Christmas. So for most of the time, it is a cooler, warmer temperature. 60s, 70s, pretty much, most of the time. Now, I haven't been here in January, February, which is primarily the most cooler times out here, but I'm assuming it's just going to get a little cooler, and you'll just be able to wear a sweatshirt or a long sleeve t-shirt and walk around with some pants on, and you'll be all good to go. It's honestly not that big of a deal. I would rather have that period of time versus, like, how cold it gets in Chicago. Like, there's been times in Chicago where it's gotten down to like negative 20 degrees and feels like negative 50 degrees, where you legitimately just cannot go outside. It's just super like, you just cannot. So that's the weather out here. It's not that bad. Now let me talk about the people out here. Primarily the people that I've had experiences out here with are very diverse. It's a primarily more Latin area. You got a lot of Cubans and you got a lot of Puerto Ricans. So there's primarily more of a Latin community out here. That's not to say that there's not white people or black people out here. There is. But I would say the Latin population is more, there's a more Latin population than any other culture out here. So just know that. Inside the bubble of Orlando and just the outside of Orlando, you're going to get a lot of rich gated communities, and you're going to get a lot of rich people. There are older people, but I see more people like a little bit older than me generation and my age right now. I do see a lot of people my age. I'm 37 years old. I do see a lot of them. I've already met tons of people out here primarily my age, in the 30s. They're working from home. They moved out here from the East Coast. I've experienced that quite a bit. A lot of people have moved out here from the East Coast and have migrated out here from the East Coast. I've had people from Chicago moved out here, people from California. People were moving out to Orlando quite a bit. Quite a bit. Like, it's just a revolving door out here. There's so much to do out here. Like, you can go to Daytona Beach, or Cocoa Beach, which is only an hour away, or you can go to Tampa or Clearwater, which is about an hour and a half away. And those are each parts of, pretty much spans across of Florida. So you have that. You have so much travel of things that you can do all around here. There's nature. That's another thing. I gotta point this out to you guys, because living in Chicago, all right, I've seen animals, all right? Yeah, I've seen animals. I know what animals look like, but, like, let me tell you out here, I have never seen so many animals just, like, in their own habitats. It's ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous. If you come from a city life like myself, yeah, when you go outside of Chicago, you go to Algonquin, or you go outside into the farmlands like Champaign and Urbana and stuff like that, yeah, you're going to see farm animals, and you see them out here. It doesn't take too long. You go to Orlando, you drive maybe 30 minutes to Sanford, or to St. Cloud or whatever, or Davenport. Like, you're going to get farm, like goats and donkeys and bulls and cows and horses, and you're going to get all of that. You see hawks. Hawks are all over the place. You can see them swarming in like 20, 30, 40, 50 birds in the air. They're all over the place. I've seen bald eagles quite a bit out here, just chilling. They're just chilling on the pole, or they're just chilling anywhere. They're just, hey, I'm here. I have seen otters. I have seen, obviously, possums and raccoons and squirrels and bunnies and all those kind of animals, but I haven't even seen that many alligators. I've seen one alligator since I've been out here. I've seen pigs. I saw some guy who had a pet pig. I have seen so many animals out here. It is unbelievable. Obviously, you have those little lizards. They're crawling over the place. Another thing I want to point out is different from Chicago or the city life or anywhere else north. When you live in the north part of the United States, majority of people clean up after themselves, and so they don't really see roaches. But out here in the tropical environment, you are going to see more roaches because it's just tropical. It's hotter out here. There are also these roaches that live out here, and they're like this big. They're called palmetto bugs, but they are roaches. They look like roaches. They're big roaches. They're very common out here. I've seen a few of them in my house. I had one crawl on me when I was sleeping one day, and it freaking freaked me out. It's just inevitable with those bugs out here because it's so, like, if you're not, like, protecting your whole entire area, like, you're gonna get them. They come in and they're just hanging out with you. It's Joe's apartment. It is Joe's apartment up in freaking Orlando, Florida. If anybody knows about Joe's apartment, comment down below. It's a great MTV movie right there. I'm stuck in traffic here. I have not been to Tampa Bay yet. I have been on the other side. I've been to Daytona, over there quite a few times. It's nice to see the beaches out there. That's another thing. Like, you are close by the beach. You take an hour, you can go right to the beach if you really wanted to. That's another thing. Like, if you're a beach person, like, this is heaven for you. I'm not very much of I don't drink alcohol, so I don't really like club and do all that kind of stuff. I feel like that's a very big Miami scene. I don't really do anything like that, so for me, it's not me. Let's just talk about the elephant in the room, and that is Disney and Universal Studios. Obviously, right, Universal Studios. That's partially why I moved out here. I'm not gonna lie. I do love the theme parks. I do like going to the theme parks. Now, I want to just preface this. You really don't need to be a Disney like fan person. Like, I know a lot of people like think about that. They're like, "Oh, you're a Disney adult?" Like, no, like I'm not a Disney adult. Like, I like Disney and I like Universal. I like some of the IPs. Like, I like Star Wars and Marvel and all that kind of stuff. But like, I'm not like I gotta dress up like freaking Aladdin. I gotta dress up like, you know, Simba or something. And I'm not like, my house is not filled with like Disney memorabilia. I love Disney. I do like the stuff that I grew up with, but I'm not a Disney adult. I like a lot of other things. I'm very versatile when it comes to different stuff. So there's not a lot of people that you don't really necessarily need to like Disney is just a chill place. All right, it's just a chill place. Now, right now, it's not as chill because it's holiday season, but like, you can just go there. Like, if you live in Orlando and you get an annual pass for both the parks, you can just go to Epcot, have a little bit of food, get some drink. There's alcohol there. You can go around the world, have different types of alcohol. There's music. There's live music in Epcot. You can just chill there if you really wanted to. Or you can ride rides. I mean, you can ride the rides if you want to. It's like, for me, it's just a great way to meet new people, have good conversations, walk around, talk. It's just, for me, I enjoy it. It ain't everybody's cup of tea. I know some people get really like bent out of shape about the wait times and stuff like that. But when you live here, that stuff goes right out the window, because I don't mind sitting there waiting for maybe like 30, 40 minutes, 45 minutes for a ride. If I do like one ride, all right, whatever. We'll just chill back. We'll talk a little bit in the line. We'll get on the ride. And it's nice. It's whatever. It's not that big of a deal. When you get out here, you will figure out like what rides are, you know, what things to do and where to go and all that kind of stuff, because it does take a little bit of learning. I'm gonna admit that. It just takes a little bit of just being there and just like trying things out. Because if you think to yourself like, oh, like I just hear about all these like wait times and stuff like that, like I'm gonna say like majority of the time there's not been one ride that I've waited over an hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes, and that was a long time. Like, that might have been like one or maybe two rides I've even waited that long. Majority of the time I'm waiting between 20 minutes to 40 minutes on an average. Now, you see the times on there, they'd be like, oh, 60 minutes. But a lot of the times they will have times that'll say 60 minutes or an hour and a half. It ain't. Like, for example, Tron, it said like 80 minutes. We ended up getting there and it was only 20 minutes. We practically almost like walked down to the freaking ride. So that's another thing. Like, people just worry about the wait times and stuff. But when you live here, it's just, I can come back. If I want to go to Tron, ride Tron for one time, I go ride Tron and then I come back. It's not that big of a deal. Universal's a little bit better because they have single riders. Disney's starting to do single riders for some of their stuff, but Universal does it a bit more. They have their single riders a bit more. So that helps out. So if you're just one person just chilling, you just want to go ride some rides, drink some drinks, and eat some food, and chillax, maybe meet a girl or meet a guy at the parks, do it. Like, it's honestly a perfect place for a meetup, especially if people have, you know, they just moved out here. I know a lot of locals kind of get sick and tired and bored of Disney, and you know, I've been here for 6 months and I've not gotten bored. I've not. I enjoy it, but that's the thing, like, I enjoy that stuff. You need to be somebody that enjoys it. Like, if you don't enjoy it, you're not gonna like it. You also need to be a person that like can handle like being around a crowd of people, because when you are there, it's gonna be families, they're gonna have their strollers, it's gonna be like a couple and their kid, or a couple and their 3 or 4 kids, or it's going to be a family of like 6 or 7 people with their other their family and stuff like that. It's going to be people, just family. It's going to be families. So, so those are the theme parks. I've done SeaWorld too. SeaWorld's a little bit, not as crazy as the other ones. SeaWorld's a little bit more like, mostly more roller coasters than like the theming park rides. So those are the theme parks. I really enjoy that. There's other stuff to do out here than just, theme parks. They have music festivals out here. I'm passing by right now the Kia Center. There's bands, big bands that play here at Kia Center. Like, you have touring bands that play here. I like pop punk and emo and all that kind of stuff. And so those artists play here. They'll play at House of Blues, in the City Walk, or in the Disney Springs, or they'll play in the City Walk area, Hard Rock Cafe. So yeah, I mean, there are ways. There are local vendors, local venues here that I've been to and seen shows already. There's goth here too. People might think like, there's a small little goth scene here. I've already been introduced to a lot of different things since I've been here, and there's a metal scene, there's a goth scene, there's an EDM scene. They had the Electric Daisy Carnival here about last month. It was here. So there's EDM, right? You have your dance music. There's clubs. There's dance clubs here. I mean, there's places to dance and drink and have a good time. You just have to do a little research and check things out, Now, meeting people. You believe it or not, it was actually harder to meet people in Chicago. I'm not gonna lie. It's harder because in Chicago, there's just so many people that everybody is practically just doing their own thing. They have their own thing going on. It's not easy to meet people. You got to be online to meet people, or unless you have your own little clique of people that you talk to, or you go to a show, like a lot of people do. They go to a show and they talk to people and meet people that way. You can do that here, but I feel like I can go to the theme park and talk to people, or just out. People here are just nicer. I'm just sorry, but like, people in Chicago are just rude. They're rude. They're not nice. They hate their lives. They don't really care what the hell, here. And a good identifier is the post office. Go into your post office and see how the people treat you at the post office. Or go into the fast food restaurants and see how the fast food employees treat you. That's a good indicator, because these are tough jobs. Okay, these are really tough jobs that most people just don't want to do. And the people at the post office have always been nice to me. I deal with them, on a constant basis. Everybody at the post office here has been really nice to me. But in Chicago, they're really rude. They're not nice people in Chicago, okay? And people are just, into their own world in Chicago. And here I've been able to meet a lot of other people. It's just been a lot smoother, and people like the stuff that I like. And maybe that's a reason why it's easier here. I like that stuff. I like the nerdy stuff. So it's easier. For you, if you're just somebody that's I listen. Sports here, we have Orlando Magic. I mean, that's really about it here. Basketball. There's other stadiums here, but it's not like Chicago. Chicago has all the different sports teams. I will give it that. If you're big into sports, then that's a big other thing too. We don't have tons of sports teams out here. There's Tampa Bay that has some sports teams. There's Miami, and then there's Orlando. That's about it. What else am I missing? I don't know. I'm pretty sure I'm missing a lot of stuff. I can talk about Orlando for days. I love it out here. I love it out here. I will never move back to Chicago. I don't care. Somebody needs to give me $1 million, and probably I will do it. But for the most part, I'm not moving back to Chicago. I will never go back to the cold climate. I love it out here. Okay? And I recommend anyone and everyone to move down to Orlando. That probably is going to make more people to move down to Orlando. But you know what? Like, people should have a happy life. Why is it that everybody has to have a depressing life? Why is it that you have to sit and smother yourself in depression and smother yourself in being unhappy about stuff? Like, it was risky. Let me just give you a description here. Like, it was risky moving down here. Okay, I didn't have a guaranteed job. Okay, I do stuff on eBay. I do Amazon Flex. I make my own schedule, and that helps me. You are going to be very different. Maybe you have a job that you have to be at every single day, and that keeps you from wanting to live down here. Because you think to yourself, oh, it's going to be hard to find a job. And yes, it is hard to find a job. It's hard to find a job everywhere. Everywhere you go is hard to find a job. But if you're going to struggle out there and you're going to be depressed, why do that to yourself? That was my whole thing too, is like, I'm going to struggle in Chicago regardless. I'm going to end the relationship. I'm going to find a place to live like everybody else does, and I'm going to struggle. That's it. Just like everybody right now is struggling. But why struggle and be unhappy and depressed when you can move, save the money, come down here and be happier? Like, happiness is more important than anything in this world. Your happiness, not my happiness, your happiness. So this is really the message here. Like, living down here has changed my life dramatically. And I'm very happy about it. Now, I'm not going to say that there's roses and there's daisies and everything is la 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 over here. Yes, there's definitely problems. They have their own, the infrastructure here. There's no public transportation, really. You have a train station. It's called the Sunrail. That's about it. It's like one rail that goes right through Orlando. It's not very great. So Chicago has that. The infrastructure of the roads. The problem here is there's just too many tolls in too many different roads. The only road here highway that does not have the tolls really is I-4. All the other roads that surround it that are highways, they have tolls. Now, they have updated their things this year where, like, if you go through the tolls and you do it 35 times, they will pay you half of it. So if you spent $40 in tolls and you went to 35 different tolls, you're only really paying $20, which is helpful, right? You're still paying money for tolls. It's an excess of enough money for tolls. So that's a big problem. And the infrastructure here is not great. It's not like Chicago. Like, for example, like, you know, you're driving around and you're like, oh, I missed a stop. Oh, crap. Now it's telling me that I got to go like 4 miles on the highway, turn around, and then like come all the way right around. And like, you got to like, it's like the infrastructure is not great here. Like in Chicago, if I made a mistake, okay, the next exit, it would be like 0.4 of a mile, and you get on there and you get right off and you come right back on, right? That is a way better infrastructure of the roads. They are building, they are improving. They have the new park here, which is Epic Universe. After that opens, this place is going to be a madhouse. I'm going to tell you, it is going to be crazy out here. Because Disney is trying to upgrade their stuff, so they're going to be adding more things in their parks. And there's a brand new park which has 4 areas: Nintendo World, an extension of the Harry Potter, there's a Universal Horror area, and then How to Train Your Dragon. So people are going to be going crazy trying to go to that. And they are building on the highway right now like crazy. And I see like people like, they're building houses like crazy out here too. Like everywhere I go, there's construction everywhere. But I'm used to that because Chicago's roads are always on construction. So I can go on and on and on. This is a 40-minute video, but I wanted to just talk about this because it's just something that is in my head, and I took a lot of risk. When I moved out here, it was 17-hour drive. My car, I'll just tell you this little adventure that I went on. I had my friend Nick, so shout out to Nick. Thank you very much, Nick. He rode with me in the U-Haul. It was a 20-foot truck U-Haul. I had all my stuff in there. I sell stuff on eBay, so I have a lot of inventory. So I had that stuff and my stuff, and my bed and the couch and all that kind of stuff. So I had that, and I had a trailer attached to the U-Haul, which carried my car. So my grandmother lives in Knoxville, Tennessee. So it's basically a halfway point. So you take about 8 hours to get to Knoxville, Tennessee, and then we stayed there. But on our way there, the trailer that's carrying my car, one of the wheels exploded into smithereens. I'm looking in the mirror, and it's just the dust pretty much. So luckily enough, I had insurance on it, and they came out. It took about 40 minutes. They came out, replaced that thing so quickly. So that's one thing. We dealt with rain and traffic going through Atlanta, and then it happened again the second day. The second tire pretty much blew up, and so they had to come back out to do the second tire of the same trailer. So it was a crazy adventure. I'm so grateful for my friend Nick. I'm so grateful for my family. They've been, helping me move in. And when I got here, I was by myself. Nick wasn't able to help me maneuver. I had to pay people to move most of the stuff into my storage unit. But after that, I'm on my own. I'm on my own. So, that's just how it goes. I knew the risks. I knew what I was in for. I knew I was by myself. But it wasn't... That's another thing. People are like, oh, I moved by myself. I'm going to be all alone. And yes, but it's not hard to meet people out here. And it's not hard to date. You can go on the apps, or you can go on the Disney dating app, or Disney thing on Facebook, or you can talk, socialize. There's a lot of socialization out here. Pubs and bars and stuff like that. People are nicer out here, just in general. Another thing that people don't like is that if you're Democrat, they don't want to move out here because they're Republicans and stuff like that. And the Orlando bubble is mostly Democratic. So that's the bubble that I'm in. So if you're afraid of that, most of the people are going to probably share your same ideas. And if not, there's a lot of people that are Republican too out here. So either way, you can figure that out and talk amongst each other. I feel like people have a hard time trying to talk about stuff like that, but what else? I'm almost at my house here. But I just want to make a short video. I know a lot of people on here... Oh, I'm losing sunlight here. Light on. I know a lot of people on here follow me because they followed me because of MetaZoo, and I know that MetaZoo is coming back and all that kind of stuff. Whenever that happens, I'll get more into that. But right now, I've wasted so much money on MetaZoo. I'm just not really interested in it anymore. But that's it for that. Alright, so I'm at my house. So if you guys are interested, you want to ask me any questions, you are curious about anything I have not talked about, the cost of the truck. Oh, the truck had cost me about $3,000 U-Haul. I moved down from Chicago. It cost me $3,000 for a 20-foot truck and the trailer to move one way to Orlando. So that's how much it's going to cost you to move down here. Probably, maybe just a little bit less. I don't know. You have to go in U-Haul, but it did cost a little bit. But I'm telling you, it's worth it. Save up the money. If you are somebody that's been contemplated and you live in an area, they're like, I don't really want to. Don't move to Chicago. Don't move to these big cities. Come to Orlando. Have some fun. Enjoy your life. Talk to you guys into the other video. Again, please like and subscribe, and love you all. Bye-bye.